Between 1845 and 1850, during the period of the Great Potato Famine, 1.5 million people would leave Ireland looking for a better life in North America. During this period, especially in 1847, when mass emigration began, ships like this that you're on at the moment, the Jeanie Johnston, was the type of ship that would carry these people across the Atlantic. And the average voyage of an emigrant ship during that period was between 4 and 6 weeks. We look back at the Jeanie Johnston making 16 emigrant voyages between 1848 and 1855 and carrying an average of 200 passengers per voyage. Of course, in 1847, with huge outbreaks of disease on board these ships, especially the likes of cholera and typhus, up to 50,000 people would either die on board emigrant ships or in quarantine on arrival. Of course, emigrant ships did become known as coffin ships because of the amount of people that were dying on board, literally describing them as one large wooden coffin. And on some ships, you know, we're talking a 75% death rate. I can tell you one ship in particular where out of 200 people, about 193 died on board. But the amazing thing about the Jeanie Johnston is that out of the 16 voyages made, not one life was lost. And this really was a remarkable record to have for that period of time. Life on board an emigrant ship during that period, very cramped conditions. These people would have been very malnourished coming on board. And of course, a very important thing was, they provided enough food. We look back at many emigrant ships, and a lot of them were treated as cargo. If they didn't have a good captain and not providing enough food, or you might often read about captains cutting the rations to save costs. I read not so long ago myself of one captain who had loaded his ship with rotten corn from New Orleans to feed his passengers. If they were malnourished coming on board, they of course would be prone to these diseases. The whole voyage was an issue as well. I mean, depending on weather conditions, the likes of these ships, the Jeanie Johnston, for example, did 2 voyages a year, normally in April and August. And of course, they weren't always guaranteed good weather. For example, in 1853, the Jeanie Johnston had to pay an unannounced visit into St Andrews, New Brunswick, rather than go on to its final destination of Quebec. And this was because of bad weather conditions. The master, James Attridge, who was from Cork, he got mostly written consent from the majority of passengers to make this unannounced visit. And of course, we look at these people that were on that voyage looking for a better life. 53 of those people remained on in St Andrews, New Brunswick, because they were promised work on the railroads there. Unfortunately, that work never came. And a lot of them had to walk to Portland, Maine in the cold of winter to go on into the US looking for work. Okay, well, we talk about the average fare, probably around £4. The Jeanie Johnston was £3.10. Now, of course, when we say an average of £4, we're talking close to half a year's wage for these poor farmers of the time. And a lot of people do ask, how did they afford to travel? A lot of it turned out to be assisted emigration, whether they had family members there already, hoping to send passage home, landlords paying passage just to clear these poor farmers from their lands, and indentured servitude. But of course, signing into indentured servitude, a lot of these people didn't know what they were signing themselves into, and the average servitude in the US was 7 or 8 years.